Greetings. Welcome to Volume 7 of the DC Current. I am your host, Damon Caskey. It is 2015-09-14, 17 hours, looks like 12 minutes on an absolutely gorgeous Monday afternoon here in the Chevy Chase quarter of Lexington, Kentucky. First things first, if there is an audience out there, you may have noticed after the wine fest that I made out of Volume 3, we've skipped straight to Volume 7. The reason for that numerical disparity I will explain in the next volume. However, today I'd like to stick with something a little less provincial than my petty first world concerns. Specifically, I'd like to talk about the 14th anniversary of 9/11. To do so, I think it best to recall three special individuals, brave servicemen who are no longer with us and touched, well, obviously my life and thousands of others along with me. And before I start getting all emotional about it, I'll just jump right on in and go right through the list. The first is Thomas Leland Moore, Jr. Thomas actually had nothing directly to do with 9/11. Tom was retired. He was an Army technician, also served as a side door gunner, who was a veteran of the Vietnam conflict. Tom, later in life, was a very successful businessman, and if he was known for anything, it would be his leadership. Tom was kind of a rough, gruff, tough and ready sort of character. All he had to do was walk into a room and people listened. He was less known, but I think still respected just as much for his wit. The man was sharp as a possum tooth. You could ask him any question, and it wouldn't matter if you were talking basic philosophy all the way up to quantum mechanics. You'd have an answer, usually before you'd actually manage to finish posing the question. Tom passed away 2013, 12/21 in the Veterans Affairs Medical Center of Lexington, Kentucky, due to multiple organ failure. Next on the list is Petty Officer First Class Eddie Thomas Earhart. Eddie was an aerographer's mate serving in the Pentagon. Eddie was often described, and I believe it's accurate enough, as the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to marry. Eddie had a boisterous sense of humor. The only thing bigger than that, I think, was probably his heart. Eddie would give you the shirt off his back, even if he didn't know you from Adam. And Eddie was the kind of guy that could pretty much just keep you laughing. He was just full of life. Eddie was serving in the Pentagon the day of the 9/11 attack and was killed as a result. Next on the list is Colin Trent Thomas, who I may also add was a second cousin to Eddie Thomas Earhart. The two were very close. Colin Thomas was a special warfare operator. Chief Special Warfare Operator. Sorry, it's hard to keep the rankings straight sometimes. To me, Colin was a brother from another mother. And so I'm going to keep my description of him rather succinct, else I'll get a little teary-eyed over it, and I'd rather not do that on a public forum yet again. Colin was the master of deadpan snark. He had a lot of traits that I could admire. I mean, the guy was obviously mentally strong, physically strong. You don't get to be a Navy SEAL unless you've got it going on up here, trust me. And gung-ho doesn't cut it. Grim determination, that's what makes the cut, and Colin had that in spades. But he also had just a biting, cutting, deadpan wit. One event in particular that I remember, and it's not going to translate with me speaking of it. It's Colin's mastery of the delivery that had us all rolling. Anyway, we were bird hunting, 2004, November, directly after Thanksgiving. And I posed the question, goodness, what must all these Fleming County birds think of us wandering around shooting them for no particular reason? Without a second's hesitation, Colin raised his weapon, blew one out of the sky, demonstrating his expert marksmanship, I might add, and with perfect monotonous delivery, it's tired of being a bird. We're doing him a favor. Eking out a living on seeds sucks. Now again, that probably doesn't sound particularly funny coming from me, but delivered by Colin, it sent our entire group into hysterics. Colin was on forward patrol in eastern Afghanistan 2010, 08, 18, when he was engaged in a firefight and mortally wounded, i.e. killed in action. Now, there's a few things that these men have in common. One of them, funny enough, is the name Thomas. The other, obviously, is that all three of them were and are heroes. And what makes them heroes, well, among many other things, is the fact that they signed on that dotted line, knowing that one way or another, they might have to lay down their lives for the rest of us back here, that they were willing to go overseas, or not go overseas, I mean domestic, either way, go anywhere they happen to be sent, and sleep in the dirt, just to protect us. And even if they had not lost their lives, that alone would make them heroes, right there. And I could tell you all kinds of traits in the case of all three that would espouse their heroics without them ever joining the military or performing any kind of service whatsoever. But if I started doing that, I'd never shut up. Okay, one more thing that they had in common, and I think that they have in common with everyone who lost their lives on 9/11, is that all three of these men were fully aware of their mortality. But I don't think any of them saw the specific end that came for them. Tom obviously had no plans whatsoever to succumb to his demons and waste away inside of a military hospital. Eddie, well, I don't think anybody could have expected what happened to Eddie. I mean, the Pentagon is probably the most secure public facility on the face of the planet. No one would expect a successful attack on such a facility. And finally, Colin, even Colin knew that his life was on the line every day that he strapped on his work clothing. But Colin had outright said he never expected anything to happen during a prototypical combat operation because of the nature of his work. Everything that he did was meticulously planned, and yet he was caught in a firefight on some random patrol escorting Rangers. So all three of these extraordinary individuals met ends that they probably didn't see coming, just like the 3,000 approximately on the day of 9/11. And I have to wonder how much unfinished business was left. How many people packed their bags and never opened them again? How many people perhaps kissed their loved ones goodbye, but also left arguments open, or had inner demons that they were facing, or slights from others that they had not forgiven, or mistakes that they had made that they had not forgiven themselves for. And to me, that's one of the greatest tragedies. Everyone knows the end is coming, but no one knows when it is. And 9/11, to me, was a reminder that you can't plan for tomorrow. You have to plan. I mean, I don't mean as in not having responsibilities. Obviously, you can't live like there's no tomorrow, or else there probably won't be very long. But I'm speaking emotionally. You can't act as if there's a tomorrow. You can't decide that you're going to tell a loved one, well, I'll tell them I love them tomorrow, or I'll forgive tomorrow, or I'll work on my own emotions tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. Tomorrow is just as much of a myth as yesterday is. So if I'm going to pull anything out of this and throw anything at you guys, and again, this is just one guy's opinion, and we all know what those are worth, but it would be, treat every day, at least on an emotional level, as if it could be your last. If you're in the midst of an argument with someone and you're about to walk away, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to solve the argument right then and there. I mean, that's not realistic. But at least say, hey, I love you. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. Don't let the last thing you say to someone be something that you or they would regret if you're not here tomorrow to make up for it. That's really about as deep as I'm going to go, because if I do, again, I'm going to start getting emotional over things. So what I would like to do now is close this out with a thank you to all service personnel, including fire, ambulance, nursing, teaching, obviously military. Thank you to Susan Nicole. Thank you to Donnie Hall. We'll even go for some people that are retired. Thank you, Brandon Perkins, Philip Holbrook, Marty McKitty. I'm drawing a blank trying to think of more names, so if I miss you, please don't be insulted. But whoever you are out there, and it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be militant service. It doesn't even have to be civil service. Just anybody that's putting themselves out there for the benefit of the rest of us, thank you. Thank you for your service. And to myself and everyone else, hey, thank you too. And remember, don't leave yourself with a regret if you wouldn't be here tomorrow. This is Damon Caskey signing out for the DC Current. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.